One of the most celebrated rulers and dictators of classical antiquity in all of history was Gaius Julius Caesar, a skilled politician who became a dictator and was on the verge of becoming the first emperor of the Republic. Rome was immersed in a series of political and social conflicts. The Roman Republic, once robust and balanced, was beginning to show cracks in its structure. Political corruption, Caesar's dictatorship and power struggles were rife in the Eternal City. Welcome to the Diary of History. Subscribe! The earliest record of Julius Caesar is his appointment as flamen Gellius, a religious office that resembled that of a priest. Lucius Cornelius Cinna, the politician who chose him for office, married him to his daughter Cornelia. When Cinna died, his enemy and consul of the Republic, Sulla, ordered Julius Caesar to divorce his wife Cornelia, but he refused. However, both Caesar's relatives and a group of Roman priestesses called the Vestal Virgins prevented this act of rebellion from having major consequences. Given disagreements with Sulla, Caesar resigned his position as flamen Gellius, but remained married to Cornelia. However, with the climate of enmity that had formed with Sulla, he decided to leave Rome to participate in several military expeditions. This would ensure that the consul and his minions did not attack him. When Sulla died, Julius Caesar returned to Rome to practice as a lawyer, showing his skills as an orator. The callous made him stand out after some cases. However, he decided to set sail for the island of Rhodes to train and increase his knowledge in disciplines such as philosophy and oratory. On his way on one of his boat trips, pirates captured him and held him prisoner until his rescue arrived. In the meantime, he practiced his oratory by writing and reciting some speeches during his captivity. Once again, Caesar returned to his hometown. This time he did so after the death of his aunt Julia and his wife Cornelia, giving birth to a stillborn son. Caesar wanted to organize public funeral ceremonies in his honor. This act was totally against Sulla's laws and the traditions of the time, but Caesar had no qualms about carrying them out anyway. During the funeral, several images of outlaws related to Caesar and his family were displayed. To be outlawed was to be condemned by the government as a public enemy. Thus, images of the deceased such as Cinna or Gaius Marius, all declared enemies of Sulla, were raised. This act generated great support among the commoners, while the current government regarded it with great revulsion, causing tension between the two estates. Julius Caesar always had the ambition to exalt his family's name and achieve the maximum possible power. He aimed the consul's chamber as a target. The consuls were two democratically elected senators who were in charge of deciding the most important affairs of the Republic. However, consuls had to be over 42 years old. At the time, he was barely 40. Caesar took over a position as administrator of one of the provinces in Hispania Ulterior, which is now southern Spain and Portugal. One of the most outstanding anecdotes of his time in Hispania was his encounter with the statue of Alexander the Great in Gades, present-day Cadiz. When Caesar learned that Alexander the Great had conquered almost the entire world at the age of 30, he began to cry in front of the statue, frustrated and distraught at comparing himself to the king of Macedon. After a year, Caesar secured himself a position as aedile curule in Rome. A position that consisted of the organization of events, shows or constructions. In addition, upon his return, he married Pompey, a wealthy family woman who possessed a large fortune. Caesar talked to the plebeians, helped them, and was seen among those who lived in poverty. The aristocrats of that time did not mix with commoners, and in fact, they walked with roses close to their noses to avoid the bad smell of dirty streets, full of poorly built shacks and diseases. To get noticed and gain even more popularity, Caesar wanted to put on the biggest and most unforgettable shows ever seen to please the masses. Since the aedile did not have a large amount of funds to carry out his activity, Julius Caesar borrowed a lot of money and personally took it upon himself to carry out these feats. After a while, Caesar had gone into extreme debt to ensure his popularity and maintain a lavish and extravagant lifestyle. It was then that he stood for election for supreme praetor, a post that was second only to that of consul and which consisted of commanding military affairs. Eventually, Julius Caesar was consecrated as supreme praetor. He gained his prestige and was able to get out of his large debts. Not content with being one of the most important people in the entire republic, Caesar remained obsessed with becoming consul. To do this, he decided to ally himself with Crassus, one of the richest men of the time, and then with Pompey, the most powerful general in Rome. This alliance of three went down in history as the First Triumvirate. This powerful alliance ensured that Caesar was elected consul along with Bibulus, a candidate supported by conservatives who detested Caesar. However, Bibulus was strongly intimidated by Caesar, not wanting to share power with him. In fact, their participation was so insignificant that, in Rome, there was a joke of calling the consuls of that year Julius and Caesar. During his rule, Caesar approved illegal measures that benefited him and in turn harmed Rome. Some senators, such as Cicero, wanted to oppose him, but his followers and henchmen used violence and other intimidatory practices against those who opposed him. When Caesar finished his term as consul, he installed himself as governor of northern Italy. From there, thirsting for power and military recognition, he expanded the Republic's territories as far as Gaul, present-day France. Later he reached the island of Brittany. After fighting countless battles across Western Europe for 10 years, territories from Italy to Brittany eventually belonged to Rome. Following his campaign, Julius Caesar marched back to Rome at the age of 50, with a majestic reputation and unquestioned power in Gaul. When the generals returned from their conquests, they were obliged to cede power and territory to the central government in Rome. However, Caesar did not want to cede a single meter of the conquered lands, and declared war on Rome itself after crossing the Rubicon River, in northern Italy. It was there that Caesar uttered his famous phrase, "Alia iacta est." This means, the die is cast, thus making the determination to fight and take the risks that this may entail. Caesar would have to fight against his initial ally, Pompey. Caesar's daughter, Julia, was married to him until his death. However, after dying in childbirth, Pompey married Cornelia, woman associated with Caesar's opponents. This, along with the death of Crassus, caused the triumvirate to disband, and the former allies to become rivals in the war. Julius Caesar destroyed any population that declared itself allied with his opponent, both in Italy and in Hispania, until he finally clashed with Pompey himself in Greece. Despite having half as many men at his disposal as his rival, Caesar won with an impeccable strategy. After this battle, Pompey fled to Egypt, being pursued by Caesar to Alexandria. There he was greeted with an unexpected offering, the head of Pompey. In addition, Caesar had an affair in Egypt with Cleopatra, the Queen of Egypt. The triumphant Caesar paraded through Rome after his victory in the Civil War. So the Senate, frightened by the ruthless exploits of Julius Caesar, appointed him dictator. This position was a short-lived title for exceptional situations, although in Caesar's case, it lasted 10 years. During his tenure, he attempted to stabilize the Roman economy that had been disrupted by the Civil War. He built libraries, canals, changed the lunar calendar, and gave land to veterans who helped him in his previous conquests. Caesar also began to use his power to satisfy any frivolity or desire that came to mind. He changed the name of the Quintus month to July, in honor of himself. He also lodged Cleopatra in a villa with her illegitimate son Caesar Ion and had a statue of her built near the Forum. This caused even his allies to turn their backs on him and oppose his excess power. So they plotted against him, and ended up killing him. Do you want me to make a video about how he died and the aftermath? Let me know in the comments. But if you want to know more about Julius Caesar, don't miss this video here. It's worth watching. And if you don't want to miss out on any more stories like this, subscribe. Thank you for watching the video all the way.